The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to give it a few more minutes to let people continue to join. So hold tight. All right, I think it's kind of slowed down and we can get started here. Good morning. I am Todd Polly. I am the Deputy CISO at the Texas Education Agency, and this is the Cybersecurity Coordinator Forum. So we do this forum once a month for the cybersecurity coordinators in the districts and LEAs around the state. So if you're one of those people, that's why you're here, and thank you for joining. Anyone else that's willing to and wants to learn more about cybersecurity in the state and things that are going on is welcome to join. And you can pass along this your QR code or email address. I ask you please join through LEA email just to try to keep. I approve each one of these to make sure that the audience stays K-12 related. So thank you for being here, and we got a lot of stuff going on. So things we're going to talk about this month, plug the ISAL. There's MS-ISAC poster contest winners. We talked about that a few months ago and got some results from that. Some cybersecurity advisories, going to talk about known exploited vulnerabilities, go through some legislative updates. Things have had some movement there, and so we'll highlight the things that are going through there. And then we're going to talk about our K-12 cybersecurity program for districts. So Melinda Dade, our CISO, is here, and she will join us for that section. So as always, if you are not a member of the Texas ISAL, I highly encourage you to check that out. The link is there. You can specifically sign up for the K-12 portion of that, and that will get you on the list of actionable intelligence that comes through from the threat reports that we receive. I just sent one of those out. So if you got one of those, you're on that list. If not, head over there and sign up for that, and you can get included on those. And so as a school district reports an incident, we will enter that through that system. And if there's any indicators of compromise, they will be sent out through that K-12 portion of that list. So very useful. Otherwise, the Texas ISAL sends out relevant vulnerabilities and that sort of thing on things that are affecting computers and vulnerabilities in the state, actionable things that come through from MS-ISAC, FBI, DHS, their sources. And so it's a good thing to be on security-wise. So a few months ago, we talked about the MS-ISAC poster contest. They did announce some winners the other day in their call. It's not officially on their website yet, so I wasn't able to get any great details about the schools. But there are some Texas winners in here, so I wanted to highlight that and congratulate whoever it is, whatever district they are. We got Michael, grade 10. We've got Victoria, and then D'Angelo also. So here are the ones here. There's one of the snapshots I sniped from that call. Michael's drawing there. So congratulations, those guys. If that's your district, please, if you know that that's one of your people, please, send me something in the chat and I'll definitely call that out. Speaking of the MS-ISAC, I think we might have some new people on the call this month. I know we sent out various things last month and through the different regions talking about some of the things we're going to talk about. So if you're not a member of the MS-ISAC, I highly encourage you to join that. It is free for all ISDs. Charter schools might get a little, I'm not sure if they qualify or not. It's kind of a gray area. But state and local governments and school districts are definitely local governments. I think charters quasi, so we'll see. But there's many memberships of being an MS-ISAC member. And so some of the things that, again, those timely alerts that come through, you'll see them from MS-ISAC first, usually before they come through the Texas ISAL. And they have some other things as well. The services that they provide free of cost for members, in which everyone is able to join, that is a school district. So a 24/7 Security Operations Center, a SOC. So this isn't necessarily tied into your environment, but they're there and available to reach out and phone call and call them with questions about if there's a situation or an incident going on in your environment. They can advise you on that. You can send them files and whatnot related to something you want to have it analyzed. If you find a file in your environment that seems suspicious or one of your tools is flagged and you want to get confirmation on that, you can definitely send that their way. That's kind of part of that malicious code analysis program. And then one of the big things that's really handy is malicious domain blocking and reporting, MDBR. And so basically that is DNS filtering with some reporting behind it. And so it's pretty easy to set up. You would just basically on your DNS servers, your external DNS entries, you would just point them to MS-ISAC's services or MDBR services. The paperwork takes probably more time than actually making the change. And then after that, all of your DNS entries will then be routed or blocked depending on if they are deemed malicious or not. So they have threat intelligence and list of those sorts of things. And if it's you get a phishing email and it's a known phishing site, it just will not resolve that address. And so therefore your people can't go click on that and get phished or download a file or enter their credentials, and that prevents email compromise from there. So it's and then once a month I think they'll give you a report based on you give them our IP addresses, and so they validate who all made requests for block things, and they'll send you a report on that every month, so you can tell how effective that is. So that's something. They have some other benefits as well. One of the things is a national cybersecurity review. That is a yearly cybersecurity assessment. I think that's tied to some certain grants. Maybe if you receive those, you have to do that. I've heard some very positive things from some districts that have gone through that process, that it's highlighted things that they need to shore up, things that they need to do better. And they're, as they're going through the details and those questions kind of highlight some things in their districts that they should do better. And so very beneficial. There's things there. Again, it's totally free. Go to the site there, the link and the QR code, and you can get signed up and get taking advantage of some of those things. So want to highlight that when we're talking about MS-ISAC. Again, don't mention this every month, but it's definitely one of those things. If you're not doing it, you should be. Some cybersecurity viruses we want to highlight here. I recently got something from one of our friends at DIR about a VIDAR command and control malicious application. And so we found it's definitely highlighting the education sectors. And so there's a thing from DHS in the handouts section, and you should be able to go over there and download that, specifically highlighting education sectors. So it's command and control server. So basically they're using servers in your environment either as a botnet or it's part of an ongoing first step to something more malicious, ransomware or whatnot. So there's some indicators of compromise in that bulletin. So go check those out, IP addresses that you can look for in your environment specifically. Look through your firewall logs to see if you have anything outgoing or incoming from those IP addresses. And hopefully that can help you catch those sooner than later. There's another, Google Chrome recently had a couple 0-day announcements. Was one of the, this was kind of a big deal when it first dropped. The Google Chrome browser typically updates itself pretty easily, but if you don't restart that, they won't accept those upgrades. And so if you make sure any of your, if you have a way to search through your environment, make sure everything's running at the version there that's on the screen or later. That was fixed in those patches. And so this was an exploitable, and it was being exploited in the wild. So definitely something that is relevant, and it could lead to someone taking control of a device and injecting malicious instructions. So there's a link there if you want to read more about that. It's about a week or so old, so hopefully everyone's past that, but if you're not, definitely something to look into. Speaking of known exploited vulnerabilities, I was on a call with MS-ISAC, their monthly call, which is also very informative. And they mentioned the known exploited vulnerabilities database that they maintain and they've set up. They set this up a year or so ago. And as opposed to just regular vulnerabilities in the CVEs, these are known exploited things that are in the wild being maliciously used to take control and do that sort of thing in various environments. And so they wanted to highlight those, to focus on those as the vulnerabilities that you might want to try to track down and patch and take care of. Because as you all know, there's lots of high, mediums, and lows, and sometimes there's highs and criticals that are more of an internal thing, and someone inside your network could take advantage of that. And so if that's not as big a concern as something a threat actor in outside in Russia or whatnot can do, so highlighting and focusing on those is definitely maybe more bang for your buck as far as your time goes. And so check that out. There's a couple links there for the actual database. You can download a spreadsheet, a CSV. You can get some JSON there too if you have a system to maybe incorporate that into. But otherwise, in the bottom left there's a site that had a really good online sortable version, and actually added some threat intelligence to that. So a gray wire, I think they had some scores on things that are more harmful than others. And so kind of in the course of all those things, things that you could focus on. The other thing to focus on too within this list, because this list, calls down the thousands and thousands of vulnerabilities that are out there to, much, much less than that. I think there's less than 1,000 in this database. But things that are actually publicly accessible, like I mentioned, from outside the website or outside of your domain, your internet, your network. And so focus on those. You can kind of use that threat analysis on that bottom left there to try to call those down. And then there's the free, you can sign up for the notifications. So then, once you kind of get a handle on things there, you can sign up for notifications and you can focus on those and ignore, or at least put on the back burner, some of these other vulnerabilities that might not be immediately affecting you. So give that a look if that's not something that you're already checking out. I just noticed a question here about MDBR before we get too far along. Is there an MDBR online registration form? I don't believe it's an online registration form. I think you sign up, they get activated. I think you can then, at least I'm not sure. I'll look for that in a minute. Once Melinda starts talking, we can join back at the end of this session there, and I can provide that answer.
Todd, this is Melinda Dade. I added a link to everybody. Hopefully.
Okay. Oh, is there one in the chat for the online for the MDBR? All right. Yeah, put that in the chat there, and that'll be great. So yeah, there is one. Some of the other services, you might need to email them to sign up for. And so, all right, moving along. Also wanted to highlight, so part of our project here that we're going to talk about is going to be some EDR solutions that are going to be available for some districts. And so SentinelOne is one of those. CrowdStrike is another, for transparency here. And so we got handed this last week to distribute to some school districts. And so there are a limited number of spots in this particular one. I think we could probably do more if they get a lot of traffic on here. And so they are asking that each district only send a maximum of 2 members to join this Threat Ops Challenge. And so this is in coordination with Proofpoint. Proofpoint does email security. They also do some cybersecurity training. So this is kind of a joint effort with them. Kind of a threat hunting project, free to register, no cost. Seems like a really cool thing. If anyone's interested, definitely go check that out. And that is taking place in a couple weeks here, May 10th. So wanted to pass that along. Legislative updates. So legislative session is still ongoing. Started January 10th. Deadline was March 10th. We even went and had some meetings last night, late in the evening, to some bills that we potentially might have some questions on. We did not. So hopefully things will progress there. The end of the session, sine die, is May 29th. And so anything that's not passed or signed by that point will not proceed. And then the governor has until June 18th to sign off on those. And so if you're interested in tracking any of these bills, the link there will get you to DIR's cybersecurity bill tracking. Majority of the ones that we'll talk about are in that tracking website. There's some that aren't that I kind of know about outside of that, but go give that a look. There's a lot of them in there, so maybe pay attention to this section, then you save you a little time. This one is one has passed the Senate, it's progressing through the House. So the top left there. We have mentioned this before. I won't go into great detail, but this basically adds local governments to the reporting, the security incident reporting requirements, which would broadly open up the instances of requirements for reporting security incidents. And so it goes from what is essentially now student PII that's maliciously kind of maintained or obtained to any kind of suspected incident at all that is on your networks. And so that's passed the Senate. This one has passed the Senate also. So the SB 768, this is reporting data breaches to the Attorney General, just kind of adds, reduces the time frame from 60 to 30 days. Nothing major there. The next one here also passed the Senate, relating to prohibiting use of certain social media applications. This would essentially ban TikTok in any government entity. School districts are included in that. I know there's many districts that are using TikTok in the classroom. So if this passes, this would have definitely have effects on that. And so it would ban TikTok along with anything created by the parent company ByteDance. Along with that, it would say anything that the governor has declared as a banned application. And so TEA had to deal with this a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago, and via executive order. And so along with TikTok, the things that were included in there were kind of things also made by foreign governments that are on the kind of no-no list. We got North Korea, Iran, China, and Russia. So Kaspersky antivirus is kind of one of those things. There's some Chinese company or owned WeChat. There's a payment system that kind of goes by that same manufacturer or developer. And there's a list of things. There's probably half a dozen or probably a dozen or more, actually. One of them is a parent holding company that has kind of ties into everything. I don't know necessarily if they have hands in developing things, but they're an investment company and they're on that list. There's a lot of things that fall out from that if you really get into the weeds on that. But just from the things on the list and the things that those companies are developing, it's quite a few things. So this is something to definitely keep an eye on. This is kind of the end thing for legislatures to pass, it seems. And so if this would take place, this would kind of drastically affect some of the things that would have to be banned in the districts to comply with this. So I just found this and recently understood that it applied to all local governments. So I don't think we talked about this in previous months. Also, that's going through both houses and looks like it has positive traction, even though it's not passed either chamber yet, is creation of a data chief privacy officer for the state. This would be at DR's level. We've talked about this before, and they could help with some maybe data privacy consultation. So another one here is going through the House. It's a House bill. There's no companion bill in the Senate, but it looks promising, like it's got some movement and traction. Talking about use of transfer of electronic devices to students, basically issuing laptops to students and that sort of thing. Some requirements around that and getting parent consent and getting some parent buy-in for some cybersecurity training for parents. How exactly that would work, don't know. But that is what the bill entails. So we'll go. Excuse me there. And wrapping up some other ones that don't seem to be doing much. 1659 has an element about that's basically rescinding the exemption for cybersecurity training. 1205 is something about using .gov domain at school districts and all local governments using the .gov domain. Haven't seen any recent movement with that. 928, there's restricting biometric data that's collected, via for public education. So school children, make sure your applications are doing that. Not a whole lot of recent movement on that one. Another one for social media on school campuses, maybe because the other one's moving forward. This one's kind of stalled. There's another one about for Homeland Security requiring another reporting of cybersecurity incidents to the Texas Homeland Security Division, and haven't seen any later movement on that one as well. So there is this one that doesn't, on paper, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere, but it's got a companion bill, HB, I left that off the slide, HB 4944. And that was one we actually were talking about last night in the committee. So I think it's got some recent movement, but nothing has gone any further with that. But this one kind of outlines some of our cybersecurity project and gives some authority to, kind of formalizes some things that we're going to do with that as far as providing services and things to districts. And then also has some notes about the regional service centers, or regional SOCs rather, and school districts' ability to go into there. There was also a segment in here also about rescinding that training exemption for everyone else except for cybersecurity coordinators. So if that passed, this would affect that as well. So that's still possible on the list there. Okay. It's time for me to introduce Melinda Dade. If you've never heard from Melinda Dade, she is our CISO and my boss, and she is wonderful. And she is here to talk about our cybersecurity program and what we can do to prepare for that. Melinda, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I first want to start off with thanking you, Todd, for having and hosting all these cybersecurity coordinator forums for everyone in the districts. I think he does a great job. So really happy that you're able to get all the information out to the schools. So I thought it would be nice if I came to visit with you all for a little bit. Todd and I and Julia at our office have all kind of tag teamed to work together on this Texas K-12 cybersecurity program. But I wanted to just come in and also share with all of you, just so that you realize more of the faces and the people behind this program. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard of us working on this. So I'll start off kind of from the beginning and just let you know the purpose of this cybersecurity program. It was something that was kind of birthed about a year ago when our commissioner was asking, what kind of things do we need to do to help bolster the cybersecurity programs at the local education agency level. And so this is a project that is meant to kind of get to the root of the biggest threats that you all face, and try to get you in a place where your risk is significantly reduced with the least amount of resources with a small amount of resources that we can provide to give you guys the most reduction of risk. So this is a program that is meant to be a stopgap between now and when the regional security operations centers will be available through DIR. That's currently another program that's being worked on. There is currently one regional security operations center out of Region 15 that is working with local school districts in the region to get them set up for cybersecurity protections and response as well as other local governments. So it's a really great program, but it's going to slowly go across the state and eventually expand to be 12 regional SOCs across the state. And so that is the end goal, is to get all of the schools and the regions connected to those centers so that they have that full cybersecurity support from that angle. But this program is meant to be something that we can get some resources to the schools and support in the meantime. And it is going to be prioritized for rural LEAs. Our cutoff right now is looking like it'll be any school district that has 2,000 or less student enrollment will be the schools that will get priority for these funding and resources. But as time goes on, and if we have more funding, we will open that up to the larger schools as well. The priority is going to also be to get endpoint detection and response onboarded and operational to as many LEAs as possible, starting with those rural schools. And the reasoning behind that is we've just seen so much data out there that shows that regardless of sort of some of the other cybersecurity controls that you have in place, this is a control that has been seen to stop ransomware in its tracks and to help schools recover faster from that. So, and that's one of the biggest threats that we're seeing at the schools right now, to either getting schools to be not operational or taking and stealing any of the student data or the staff data. So that is one of our biggest control priorities, is to get every school to get EDR enabled in all of their environments. It will be to focus on the servers that schools have, as well as central office staff. That'll be the initial focus for this cybersecurity program. It will not include student devices or other type of peripherals or other devices that you have. It's also part of this program, we're going to include some network detection and response as an option for schools to leverage if they'd like to. It might come in handy, especially for Internet of Things or cameras that you can't really put EDR on them, but maybe you can monitor the network to see if there's any anomalies in the network. And then we're going to provide, not as a requirement, it is going to be, as you're interested, a cybersecurity assessment. We're going to provide like a sampling amount of services for that, so that if you're an LEA that's interested in getting a baseline of your cybersecurity maturity, you can request this assessment. It's usually like a week long, and they look at your documentation and your controls, and they do some interviews, and then they give you a report on what action items you would want to focus and prioritize on first. And it gives you a nice snapshot of your maturity level. And that would be a third-party cybersecurity assessment. I do know there's plenty of other self-assessment solutions out there that a lot of the regions help provide, and a lot of third parties, and we still encourage all of you to leverage those as well, just to make sure you know where you're at and have a roadmap of where you can go. Also with that, there may be some schools, like if you had a breach or something, there may be, especially if one of those bills passes, there may be an opportunity where the commissioner or I guess someone at DIR might request your school to have that assessment, just to help you get a baseline after a breach, so that you can know what areas need to be worked on. But this is not meant to like give you a bad grade or anything like that. It's just meant to be a tool to help you mature your cybersecurity program. And last but not least, this program is going to include cybersecurity practitioners that we're going to place at the regional levels, and they will be a dedicated resource for this program and for the projects that we're funding. And they will help assist school districts with implementing any of these controls, or working on working with DIR to get any of these services to you. So you can go to the next slide. Oh, and I did just see, okay, thank you. I saw the answer to that question. Yeah, this program, if funded, it looks like it made it into the budget bill, our exceptional item that we requested to fund this program. So it's very likely that it will pass, and we will have this funding available September 1st. So because there's so many moving parts and it's such a huge program, we wanted to get the word out now to let you know that this is coming, and to give you some actions that you can take so that you can start leveraging it as soon as possible. And so September 1st is when it will officially be launched, at least parts of it. We won't have every aspect of the program available September 1st. And there it is right there. The launch will include, we're going to leverage managed security services through the Department of Information Resources. They are currently servicing all the state agencies with some of these services, and I guess, the EDR controls. And so they're going to broaden it to provide it to you all as well. And it's within the scope of this program, it's just going to be a few select items within that security service that TEA will be funding. But there are other services that you can leverage as a school district to use, but it would be at a fee, it would be at a cost. And right now, any of the services that we're talking about, EDR, NDR, they will be free of charge at this time. And you can go to the next slide.
Linda, I wanted to chime in too. Regards to that one legislation that the SB 717 / House Bill 4944, that has some funding attached to it as well, potentially. And so we have this funded in a separate source. And so if there's funding from that, slim chance maybe they might actually give us some funding for that. That would open up to beyond kind of like our initial rollout too. So if 2,000 enrollment or less, that kind of threshold that we met there, that would open it up and maybe give us more opportunities to serve other districts as well. So wanted to mention that before we forgot about that.
Yes, thank you. And then I also was going to mention that the regional security operations centers, so it looks like at this point that they are also funding EDR 100%, and all the tools that they're providing, it is free of charge other than your network connection to the actual regional SOC. So that's why we're in line with, we're preparing you all to get kind of funneled into those programs. So although it's not guaranteed, we are thinking that the funding for fully funding the EDR solution will be available until those RSOCs are available. That's at least what the projection of what this is looking like. And it's also in line with what a lot of other states are doing as well for their local entities and school districts. So just this kind of overviews the umbrella service at DIR. They have the managed security service, and they have 3 different areas: risk and compliance, security monitoring, and device management and incident response. And within those areas, the cybersecurity assessments under the risk and compliance, and the endpoint detection and response, and the network detection and response for security monitoring would be fully covered by this program. All the other things that are being offered would be at your own cost. And then just wanted to introduce you to all the different players that will be a part of this K-12 cybersecurity program. We'll have the LEAs are going to be the customers that receive services from the managed security service. The regions are going to be partners with DIR, TEA, and the LEAs to help with the implementation as the LEAs require. And then TEA will be the primary funding source for this program. We'll also help with some of the standardization and facilitation. So just making sure that as we onboard those 20 cybersecurity practitioners, that they're all interacting with the schools in a standardized way and providing similar services for everyone. And then DIR is going to actually provide the IT services and the assessments through their managed security vendor. And then we'll have the managed security vendor that may change over time. I think they have 1 more year until their rebid. At this current time, they are AT&T, and it is their own entity within AT&T, their consultant organization. They're not related to the other carrier and internet providers portion of AT&T. They're their own entity, just to bring clarification to that. And then also the MSI vendor, they're the folks that work at DIR, and they're going to help make sure that any of the paperwork and the processes is funneling through in an appropriate manner and efficiently to make sure that the managed security vendor and DIR and the ESC are all working towards the same common goal and getting all the things taken care of. And they are currently Capgemini at this point. So I want to introduce you to just a general outline of how the K-12 program will work, K-12 cybersecurity program will work. Right now, between now and the end of August, that'll be our preparation stage. And then once we get to September 1st, for all those that have completed the initial preparation step, you'd be able to go in and request your assessment or request the technical controls that you want implemented in your environment. And then later on, we'll do a follow-up to make sure that those projects are actually getting completed and are being helpful to the schools. So the thing that I want to focus on today is the preparation stage. And what that'll require is for each LEA to have their own contract with DIR to be able to leverage the managed security service that they offer. And so if you go and look in your handout section of this webinar, there's 4 handouts there, you can download them. One of them you'll find is the interlocal agreement for a new customer. And you would need to fill that out, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute, and send it to this email address, dir.sharedservices@dir.texas.gov. And each school district will be required to fill that paperwork out and send it in. And once that contract is completed, then you'll be able to start leveraging the services. There is no fees associated with signing that contract. It just puts you in an agreement with them. And it allows you to even go in, and as soon as you sign it, you can go in and purchase your own services if you want to from that contract. You do not need to, though. And if you're interested in the K-12 cybersecurity program funded by TEA, you'd need to wait until we announce in September 1st when those services will be available and funded by TEA. So I'll go kind of more quickly over the section 2 and 3 just because that's down the road, but just to give you the roadmap. So once September 1st hits and once you're already onboarded to the and have that contract signed, for assessments, you're just gonna go into the portal that you'll get access to, and you'll request the service. I believe next month we're gonna have more discussion on how you'd actually go in and request these services once you're onboarded. I mean, we'll have this recorded and we'll have the session next month recorded so that you can refer to it at a later time as well, or share with your friends. So the managed security vendor is going to conduct a virtual K-12 cybersecurity assessment. It's going to be based off of the Texas Cybersecurity Framework, which I know many of you leverage. And if you don't leverage that framework, that's fine. It can just be a really good baseline to review and have that to know where you're at in your cybersecurity goals. And then also you can go and either the LEA or the ESC, depending on your situation, can go in and request licenses for either the EDR or the NDR solutions. We'll at a later time go into greater detail on what options you will have as far as EDR and NDR and what those differences are. But we do have options that'll be available to you for that. And then as far as the technical assistance for cybersecurity program, this has not been fully worked out yet, but we're going to be working with the ESCs in the coming months to figure out how to have this group of 20 cybersecurity practitioners that are going to be focused on helping their region, but also be a shared resource across the state to be able to help wherever that help is needed for implementing these controls at the schools. And then as a follow-up, once, as far as the assessments go, the vendor will deliver the report to the LEA and discuss remediation recommendations for you as far as next steps. And then TEA is just going to get an aggregated report showing just a snapshot of what are the biggest areas that LEAs will need help with in the future. And that'll help us align with how we grow this program and what other minimum standards we might need to focus on. And then as far as the technical controls, we're going to just receive a report from DIR letting us know of how many successful license implementations there were across the state. So we'll get back to the paperwork involved, very exciting stuff. So once you fill out that interlocal contract between DIR and LEA, it'll have some general provisions to the services that DIR will be providing through that program. You'll then move into specific, that allows you to do work with DIR. You'll then move into terms and conditions that pertain specifically to the managed security service, and letting DIR know that you accept those terms and conditions. And then last but not least, once you have those two things signed and taken care of, when you go in to actually request the work that you're going to want, either the assessment or the technical controls, the managed security vendor is going to reach out with you and make sure that you have a solution proposal package, very similar to scope of work. You'll have a verification meeting. This isn't meant to be very long, but it's just to make sure everyone's on the same page as far as what you're ordering and what they're going to be providing for you. And this is at this stage, especially for the smaller school districts, this is where that cybersecurity practitioner at the regional level is going to be able to help facilitate these projects at this point moving forward. And it will also be the time that TA will provide the funding for those services. Now I'd like to show you the form just so that it's not too overwhelming when you see it. So this is the new customer form. You're just going to fill it out with all the contact information that you see here that's grayed, I guess highlighted in gray.
Melinda, this form is available in the handouts also, by the way. So
yes,
it is
yes.
there for you guys to check out. And then there was a question before we get too far along about the assessments being limited to 2,000 enrollment. And I think the answer to that is no, if you want to speak to that.
Correct. That is available to all school sizes. And that'll be first come, first serve at this point for those. We have a certain allotted funding that we set aside for those assessments. And so schools that are interested in getting that will be able to request those. The goal was we wanted a sampling of different size schools so that we could have a better idea of where the maturity level sits for most of you all. And I see a few other questions here. Yes, there will be a recording of this today, and there will be a recording of next month as well. And I think we're gonna have this available and posted somewhere so that you all can reference it whenever you need to, and we can, other schools can resource or access it as well. And then I see one other question. Are these services available for larger districts provided that LEAs fund them independently of state funding? Yes, absolutely. So any of these services are available through the MS or the managed security service. And so if you sign this contract that we're showing here, you're able to go in and purchase it through that. I believe there's also some regions that have some contracts with some of these same vendors. And so you might want to look at your different options for what you're going to do as a larger district. We are working very closely with those regions to make sure that if the funding becomes available for those larger districts, that we're still making sure that you're set up to do it in an efficient way to switch over. I will say this caveat. If you are a school district that has an EDR and you're about to renew and you're like, it's not September 1st yet, so you're kind of caught in the middle, you speak to your region, your vendor, and just see what kind of options they have. I do know that you can go through the managed security service and do like a monthly subscription to their service, and then September 1 they could roll you over for TEA to fund it instead. So just make sure to speak with them to figure out what your best option is for your district on that one. And then there was another question about, and I think it maybe already got answered, about the ESCs being able to register LEAs. So we do need each, I'm just gonna say it just so for anyone that missed the question. So we do need every single local education agency to fill out this contract that Todd has up on the screen. And that will provide that relationship between you and DIR. But as far as any of the services that you'll be requesting, once you have that contract, that's something that the regions can help facilitate for you moving forward. So if they wanted to do like a blanket request, they can do that and manage that. You can go ahead to the next. I think these are pretty self-explanatory, you know, fill out your contacts for that. If you can go to the last one that has the highlighted.
You want to talk about the finance option? I don't know if you heard Terry this morning mention, but
I'll let you talk about that.
Okay, yeah, the finance contact. So if you are not planning on purchasing anything from DIR and just getting the free services that we're going to be providing through this grant, you do not need to provide a finance contact. But if you go ahead and provide one, if any time in the future you want to actually purchase something, you won't get caught up and, you know, stalled with that being missing. So it's just someone for them to contact for the financial information if it comes a time that they need to do that for something in the future. So that's that for that one.
Okay, thank you. And then this part, so if you're only planning on getting the managed security service through DIR, the one that's highlighted is the only one that you need to X. If you're interested in all the other ones, you obviously can help yourself to select those as well. But for this program, it'll all be coming through the managed security service. So that's the section that you would select. And you can go to the next slide. So this is just to give you, you know, a heads up on what would happen. So after you fill out that new customer information form, you'd send it to that email address that we had on the slide. It's also at the top of that new customer form. Then these are the other steps. I'm not going to go through them right now, but this will be available for you later. These are the other steps that you'll go through to make sure that you're ready starting September 1st to get those services and start getting them all figured out. And my hope too is that, you know, I would really like to see as many school districts as possible on board and sign that interlocal contract between now and September 1st. Even if you never end up using it, at least you have it. There's also some incident response services that they provide that if you get in a pinch, you can just call them up and they would be able to send their people out and start helping you. And you can also purchase things off of this should you need to. So I think it's great to just have in your back pocket regardless, even if you're a school district that's larger than 2,000 enrollment. And then on these future calls, and please try to encourage all your other contacts at other region or other schools as well, is, you know, next month I think we'll have DIR come in and the managed security vendor come in to help show how to request for these services through the portal once we're given access, and then we can keep that as a resource that we have. But then some of the future calls, I think we'll have some of the vendors, the security vendors that will be providing the solutions that you'll be able to purchase. We'll start talking about those in more depth and talking about the differences of those different services so that you can make an informed decision on what's the best subscription or license to buy for your district or to request for your district. And the last piece that I wanted to say about this program is right now this is just based off of the funding for our exceptional item. That's a 2-year funding. We do anticipate that if this is successful, that we'll be able to continue to fund it. That's our assumption. It's not obviously promised by any means. But it's also, sorry, excuse me. It's also going to be a way for the rest of the state to see how this works and how successful it is, and see if we can get a reduction in some of those ransomware incidents that we have. And if it works very well, it sounds like it might be something that will be expanded to the rest of the state with other local governments. So it really is a great opportunity for K-12 to sort of showcase how this can work. There's other states are doing something similar. They're calling it whole of state cybersecurity, and they're providing some minimum cybersecurity controls for their local governments. And Texas is such a huge state that even just taking K-12 is quite the project. So I'm really excited to get these resources in your hands so that you can start protecting your endpoints in this way. And I think it'll be a really great positive impact to show how, when we all work together, we can kind of help prevent some of these unfortunate events that have been happening. I think with that, oh, thank you. Yeah. If you have any questions, you can reach out to our team, or you can reach out to the DIR team as well. But we're really looking forward to this project being successful. And this piece is just focused on the funding that we've been given. If the bill passes that requires TEA to provide minimum cybersecurity standards, our intention on that would be to try to find minimum cybersecurity requirements that either we can help fund, like EDR, or things that would be low cost or free. And we would leverage those cybersecurity practitioners that we're giving we're funding for the regions to help with those implementations. So we really don't want to just leave you out in the dark. We want to help you as best we can, come alongside you and get you some resources. I know 20 people is not enough, but it's a start. And we really want to try to pick the things that will be low cost, low resource on the schools, but will have a big impact on reducing risk. So are there any more questions that we should handle?
Yeah, Melinda, I wanted to clarify a few things. So the EDR solution that's currently through the MSS contract is CrowdStrike and SentinelOne. And those would be the providers that's subsequently the 2 providers that a couple of regions have contracted with. And September 1 would be when I think we could provide this funding. I'm not sure. I think it would be difficult to backdate that. But we also confirmed that these particular applications, as far as EDR goes, are fully managed. And so it's not, your console that you have to constantly look at and make sure anything that pops up is legit or not. There is management behind that. And there's a couple options that you can choose from there once we get to that point, but they are fully managed. So they will weed through the false positives to get through that. And I also wanted to mention, and I forgot what it was. Let me refresh myself with a question. Oh yeah, the Cybersecurity Coordinator Forum. So this is an ongoing series, and I've added dates to it over the years. And the next one is in May, and I think that's the last one I actually have scheduled. And so I will be adding more dates to that, and you probably get an email about that. And so if you pay attention to that email, it should have some calendar link in there that you can actually add the new dates to. Otherwise, they kind of drop off your calendar. You still could join. You still will probably get the email notification, but if you don't add that to your calendar, you might miss out on scheduling and putting aside a time for that in the future. So keep that in mind. And Dale's question about all staff for these services. No, we were focusing on servers and central office staff, thinking that that was the highest priority. And we're trying to spread this as far and wide as we can with the money that we're given. And so I think roughly with the money that we have allotted for EDR specifically, it's going to be about 500,000 licenses, more or less, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on how things get divvied up. And so we think with that threshold of the 2,000 enrollment, we could cover all of those districts if they apply. So if they don't apply, and then later on we want to get rid of this money, we don't want to leave it there, and so we can open it up to another threshold or just first come first serve after that. The size districts that we were kind of focusing on 2,000 enrollment and less at this point. So from our numbers, that's about 800 and some districts, I think. And I think, I don't know if we can cover all of them, but we kind of figured not all of them are going to apply. But I think it could be really close if all of them did apply. I think that answers all the questions that are out there. So yeah, if you're waiting for a cybersecurity framework assessment, if you want it covered, I think, wait until September 1st or after. Any other questions before we wrap up? There's a question about TA having a cybersecurity website. We had some stuff on the Gateway site a while back, and we haven't updated that in a while. And I don't know that we haven't actually created a site to house different information at this point. The EDR providers are CrowdStrike and SentinelOne yet. Which that one alert or that one notification for the threat operation exercise was sponsored by SentinelOne, which is relevant.
Yeah, right. I will add, you might start to receive some, reach out from CrowdStrike and SentinelOne, and once the NDR solution is chosen, you might also hear from AT&T because they know that they'll be providing the cybersecurity assessments. So they are aware, of this program, and they're pretty excited for obvious reasons. So, they're here to help, and they do want to help make sure that you all are successful.
So there's a question about the training certification for cybersecurity training for staff. So as of right now, that is the same, and I think it'll probably be that way through September 1st. And so if anything changes, I don't think it would take effect until September 1st. So that is the next fiscal year as far as cybersecurity training goes. So the requirement is still just the cybersecurity coordinator. And so DR's website has the form and link where you can certify that certification that you've completed the training. If I can get a link real quick here for that, I can put it in the chat. Any other questions? All right, and there's that link for that in the chat. Thanks everyone for attending. I think that's it. Join us next month, like Melinda said, and we'll have a little more information for you, and maybe have some, as we're so close to the end of the session, maybe have some final status on some of these things that we've been looking at throughout the year in the legislative session. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next month.